Okay, we're going to see what the King's reaction is to the events of Bunker Hill. Does anybody remember who the King of England is at this time? King George the Third. Very good. Now, this is kind of interesting because I told you that the colonists referred to themselves as patriots, whereas the British Army referred to them as, well, the official name of rebels came after King George III heard about the events of Bunker Hill. And this is when he officially proclaimed the colonists as rebels. And he made arrangements to do two things. So shocked at the news of the events at Bunker Hill, King George III officially proclaimed the colonists rebels and proceeded to do the following. He did the following after hearing of the news. So shocked at the news of Bunker Hill, King George III officially proclaimed the colonists rebels and proceeded to do the following. The first thing he did is he ordered the Royal Navy to begin a tight naval blockade to close off all shipping into the colonies. Okay, he ordered the Royal Navy to begin a tight naval blockade to close off all shipping to the colonies. Ordered the Royal Navy to begin a tight naval blockade to close off all shipping to the colonies. Figures he's going to starve them out, right? Okay. Second thing he did is he hired mercenaries. Anybody know what a mercenary is? Someone that's paid to be a soldier. He hired 10,000 soldiers, could be known as mercenaries, from the German state of Hesse. They were called Hessians. And he hired those 10,000 soldiers from the German state of Hesse, called Hessians, to help fight and subdue the Americans. So he is employing 10,000 soldiers outside the country of Great Britain, called Hessians, to help fight the Americans. He's going to send these Hessians to America and pay them to join the cause of beating down the Americans.
Why didn't he just send British troops?
I think he thought they were better fighters if they're going to be paid. I think that's what his philosophy was. Okay? Well, we'll see. Now, at this point, after Bunker Hill, the Second Continental Congress sent diplomatic agents to France, Spain, and the Netherlands. After Bunker Hill, the Second Continental Congress sent diplomatic agents to France, Spain, and the Netherlands. Why did the Second Continental Congress send diplomats to those three countries?
Try to get allies.
Request aid. Very good. Tried to request aid. So, as the king is reacting to Bunker Hill by ordering the Royal Navy to begin that tight blockade of all shipping to the colonies and hiring 10,000 Hessians to help fight the Americans are going through the Second Continental Congress and they're sending diplomatic agents to France, Spain, and the Netherlands to request aid. So the question is, where is George Washington at this time with his new Continental Army, right? They are occupying an area known as Dorchester Heights, which is on your ID sheet. And Dorchester Heights is an area that overlooked both Boston and Boston Harbor. So if we get a date in here and look at early 1776, Washington and his Continental Army were occupying an area known as Dorchester Heights, which was an area that overlooked Boston and Boston Harbor. Now the king, after hearing of Bunker Hill, replaced General Gage with British General Sir William Howe. So Gage is replaced after Bunker Hill by the king, and he's replaced by General Sir William Howe. So Gage is no longer the governor of Massachusetts. He's no longer the overall commander of British forces in America. He is replaced by the king by Sir William Howe. And the first thing Sir William Howe does is he decides, you know, this is kind of useless to try to hold Boston any longer. It just isn't worth it. So the British fleet sailed out of Boston Harbor on March 17, 1776. Along with the British fleet that sailed out of Boston on March 17, 1776 were British soldiers, and they actually took about 1,000 civilian loyalists with them. So, British General Sir William Howe, who replaced General Gage as commanding officer, decides it would be useless to try to hold Boston any longer. So on March 17, 1776, the British fleet sails out of Boston Harbor, and on that fleet are not only British soldiers, but approximately 1,000 American colonists that were loyalists. Okay? Now you're going to find out in this, as we go on, these loyalists did everything they could to stymie the revolution because they were loyal to the king. You'll hear more about that. So, the British deoccupy, so to speak, Boston on March 17, 1776, when the British fleet sails out of Boston Harbor along with British soldiers and 1,000 what? Loyalists. Okay? That'll take us to our next subtopic, which is what?
Battle of Moore's Creek Bridge.
Where did they go?
We'll tell you that. That story will come up. They're not going back to England, I'll give you that much. Well, they still have hope in Canada that they can push this British state, but you got a good point. But they're not bragging Boston, you know what I mean? Okay, the Battle of Moore's Creek Bridge. I just gave you a little handout here, it kind of tells you about it. Now this battle was fought a long way from Massachusetts. That's where everything's happened, right? This battle actually was fought in North Carolina. And it's going to be the first battle of the South. And as a result of that, it's referred to as the Lexington and Concord of the South. Because the Lexington and Concord was the first battle in the North, actually the first real battle of the Revolutionary War. So this battle at Moore's Creek Bridge in North Carolina, which was fought in the South, is often referred to in history as the Lexington and Concord of the South. Now you're going to find out that these southern colonies are more what? Loyal to the crown. And we'll talk about that later. Now what happened, this battle of Moore's Creek Bridge was set up when the governor of North Carolina recruited nearly 2,000 loyalists from the colony. He recruited nearly 2,000 loyalists. And the governor was going to send these 2,000 loyalists to Wilmington and Brunswick, North Carolina, where they would be joined by British soldiers and a powerful British fleet to ensure that North Carolina did what? Stayed loyal to the British. So the governor of North Carolina was a big-time loyalist. And he recruited nearly 2,000 loyalists from the colony. He had them march to both Wilmington and Brunswick, North Carolina, where they would join a large group of British soldiers and a powerful British fleet. And the reason why the governor sent these loyalists to team up with the British is his goal was to ensure that North Carolina stayed loyal to the mother country, or England. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
What was the first town?
Okay, the battle was set up when Governor of North Carolina recruited nearly 2,000 loyalists from the colony, and these loyalists were to march on Wilmington and Brunswick. Are they not both on your sheet?
Yeah.
Wilmington and Brunswick, and they were going to join there with British soldiers and the British fleet, and the goal behind the whole thing set up by the governor was he wanted to ensure that North Carolina stayed loyal to England. Okay? Now, are there some patriots in North Carolina? There are. And they become aware of this plan. So they station about 1,100 patriots at Moores Creek Bridge. So when the patriots find out about this plan on the part of the governor of North Carolina, they station approximately 1,100 patriots at a place called Moores Creek Bridge. And they're under the direction of Patriot leader James Moore. It's his bridge. Okay? So, the Patriots were fully aware of the plan by the governor of North Carolina. As a result, Patriot leader James Moore stationed approximately 1,100 Patriots at Moores Creek Bridge. Now this might sound kind of elementary, but this is what they did. The American troops actually ripped up the planking from the bridge. You know, in those days, what you had when you cross a bridge, this would be an aerial view, is you had logs like this that were put across, and then planks, right, that were nailed down to the logs, and that made the bridge. Well, what they did is when they got to Moores Creek Bridge, they ripped up this planking off of there and just left the logs. Okay? Now you're thinking to yourself, well, they could just walk across the logs. Well, what they did is they took soap and tallow and greased up the logs. And you can't really see that, I mean, if they do it right. So the American troops ripped up the planking from the bridge and greased the log supports with soap and tallow. So at dawn, on February 27th, 1776, at dawn, on February 27th, 1776, the Loyalists were marching. They hadn't got to those towns yet to join the British. They were still marching there, and they came upon Moores Creek Bridge. And they see that the planking is tore off. Okay? So, at dawn on February 27, 1776, these Loyalists, 2,000 Loyalists, reach the bridge. They're exhausted from marching all night. And as they attempt to cross on those slippery logs, they're met by repeated fire from the Patriots, who put themselves in the brush on the opposite bank. So they're marching this way. They're trying to get across these logs that go across the creek. They're in the bushes on this side, and as they're trying to get across and slipping and sliding and whatever, the Patriots open fire. Now this was a butt kicking beyond belief, because during that short and fierce fight, the Patriots took over 850 prisoners. They took many weapons and a huge supply of gold that these Loyalists had with them. 850 prisoners. They took 850 Loyalist prisoners. They took many, many weapons, which were crucial. And they also took a large supply of gold that the Loyalists are carrying with them. The Patriot losses in this were 1 man killed and 1 man wounded. So the casualties were quite small for the Patriots in the Battle of Moores Creek Bridge. Well, think about it. The British soldiers are marching towards those 2 towns, right? Expecting what? To meet up with 2,000 Loyalists. Well, when the British soldiers and that powerful fleet arrived in May of 1776, they looked around and found no Loyalist troops. So what'd they do? Sailed away. They sailed away. So when the British soldiers and powerful fleet arrived at the 2 towns we talked about in May, They found no loyalist troops there to meet them, so they simply sailed away. So what is the goal accomplished by the Patriots in this particular battle? They shattered the British plan to hold North Carolina loyal to Great Britain. Okay, didn't get her done. And we're going to come back to North Carolina later. There's going to be some interesting battles in the south that we'll come back to, but just keep in mind that the Battle of Moores Creek Bridge was the one that kept North Carolina from being completely loyal to England. If that would have happened, that would have made it difficult for the Revolutionary War later for the Americans. It would have made it real tough. Okay, that'll take us to our next subtopic then, which is the colonists decide to fight for their independence. Have they declared their independence yet? Even though they've shed blood? No. So the colonists decide to fight for their independence. Okay, now I want you to think about this. Up until this point, obviously not 100% of the colonists thought this fighting and this resistance and this rebellion was right? Even if you wouldn't call yourself loyalists, there still were people that were very apprehensive, that hadn't really chosen a side yet, that are thinking, man, do you really think this is a good idea to go to war with the mother country? And I'm going to give you 5 examples or 5 reasons why most colonists were cautious about a war. Because here's what you have, kids. You've got a small percentage that are kick butt and take names, right? And you got a fairly small percentage, maybe a balance, that were saying, oh my God, we've got to stay totally loyal to the king. And then you've got this 80% in the middle, so to speak, that are still very uncertain of where they stand on this. And most of these, like say 80%, were very cautious about a war. And these are the reasons why. Number 1, most of these colonists were reluctant to make a final break from Great Britain. They were really reluctant to do that. Okay? You know, kind of going out with this gal over here, and she's really loyal, you know, to everything. And then I kind of like this rebel. This gal over here is kind of risky. Over here, I kind of, God, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that either, but, you know, I'm pretty safe in this other deal, but the mother country, it's pretty safe. I don't have to take a lot of risk. I just don't know, man. I'll tell you, I don't know if I want to make a final break from that good girl to go for this bad one, because this bad one's going to probably come out bad in the end. See if it can make some comparisons. Number 2, another reason why these colonists were cautious is they felt that the British government maintained law and order and stability in the colonies. That was true. They did maintain law and order. They did have a sense of law and order in the 13 colonies. They did have stability. Now, they might not agree with everything that Parliament did, including some of those acts and taxes, but they did believe they had law and order and stability. Okay? Had somebody taking care of them, so to speak. The third reason why most of these colonists were cautious about a war is they had witnessed mob rule firsthand. What's an example of mob rule that turned out not so good for a little guy? Right, Christopher Cider. That was an example of mob rule, where this mob came up and it resulted in the death of this innocent, for the most part, 11-year-old boy. So a lot of these people were afraid of mob rule. They had seen the violence that comes with mob rule, and that was another reason why they were cautious about a war with the mother country. Now, here's a good reason to be cautious. What if you don't win this revolution? How are you going to be treated? You know, if the colonies revolt and failed to win a war, I'm going to guess that their treatment would have been unbearable, including probably many of these people that were leaders executed for treason. So, you know, before I'm really interested in declaring my independence, what's going to happen if we don't win? What's my life going to be like then? It's certainly going to be worse than the way it is now. Okay? Okay, Another thing they were concerned about is once they separated from Great Britain, not only did Great Britain become their enemy, but who else did? Every other country within the British Empire. So they're going to make a lot of enemies. So the fifth reason was, once they are separated and declare independence or independent from Great Britain becomes their enemy along with every single possession they own in the British Empire. Also becomes an enemy. So again, repeating those, and we'll stop for the day. One reason why most colonists were cautious about a war, they were reluctant to make the final break from Great Britain. 2, they did understand that the British government was maintaining law and order and stability to the colonies. 3, they were afraid of mob rule. 4, they wondered what would happen if they revolted and lost, the consequences. And 5, if they received their independence, they not only become enemies of Great Britain, but enemies of everybody within the British Empire. Okay, so we'll finish this up tomorrow. Here's kind of what I'm thinking. What is tomorrow?
Friday.
Thursday.
That's pretty much.
Well, it's pretty much